Just as any trash tier piece of media can have a shining spark of a good idea before it's crushed under the weight of failure, so too can your 9 and 10 out of 10 games have that one part you hate going back to. Your Triforce hunts, your mech levels, blue coins, fog of war. No game is perfect, and I think the ability to be critical of things you like makes you much less susceptible to being a huge fanboy. Nobody wants to be that guy on an internet forum. That's not to say you should go around criticizing other people's favorite things just to be a contrarian, because that's arguably more annoying, and the small amount of Twitter clout isn't worth the shame you'll feel once you're out of middle school. Here's some of my least favorite parts in my favorite games. I'm starting with an easy one because, Atlantica is just a gimme, right? It's too obvious. Nobody likes Atlantica, you've heard it all before, your parents have walked in on you playing this part, and what bugs me are the occasional people trying to make excuses for it. Stuff like, well, it's optional, or, well, it's good to change things up. But that completely misses the point. It's optional, yeah, but there's several extremely good rewards behind doing it, the most important of which is getting an Orichalcum Plus for the Ultima weapon. And I don't even disagree that changing things up is good. I personally get a kick out of the poo minigames or trying to get high scores in the Twilight Town jobs. The issue isn't that it's a change of gameplay, it's that Atlantica is the worst rhythm game ever made. I love rhythm games. Guitar Hero, Theatrhythm, Muse Dash, Groove Coaster, Musinx, but Atlantica is none of that. It barely scores higher than America's Next Top Model on the Wii. The notes are extremely far and few between, the timing feels broken, there's almost no difficulty escalation despite them adding new note types every stage, and most of the songs don't require you to play them to the end, just get a certain score threshold. Literally every single time I play Atlantica, I get the minimum effort required, then put the controller down and go to the bathroom or something. Even the Jiminy Journal doesn't require a certain high score, they just got lazy and put down "do it again" as the world's journal gimmick. And the journal requirements can get really fucked up, like the Mushroom 13 scores. The best part about Atlantica is imagining everyone's voice actors in the booth thinking why Nomura has forsaken them. Or maybe they actually got a kick out of the singing. That'd be fun. Since that's too easy though, I'll also say my second least favorite, which is Pride Lands. Lion Sora has some novelty at first, but once I figured out that the optimal gameplay is just to put all your air combo pluses on and go to town on the square button, the whole world is like one big fuzzy spot in my memory. You can only use Simba's limit, so he is basically required in every encounter, even outside the battles he's forced into. The drive gauge is off limits, so no summons or drive forms, and all the required fights are extremely annoying. The hyenas are so ridiculously fast in their first fight you can get clobbered from off-screen randomly, and in the second chasing mission their speed makes the fight take for fucking ever. The Heartless Scar fight feels like he gets staggered whenever he feels like it, so I usually just stand back and spam Simba's limit until he dies. And the fight against the giant whatever the hell this thing is has that annoying forced cutscene right at the start of the fight where you mash triangle for a Kingdom Hearts 3's cutscene worth of time. And this is a personal thing, but because Lion Sora usually ends up in the air after a combo and the boss is immune to magic, getting a finisher off with all the air combo pluses equipped means I have a hell of a time getting a finisher out. Not a fun world, but doing donuts once you unlock the dash is pretty funny. Just about every dungeon in Tales of Graces is terrible. Tales has never had great dungeons. Symphonia had a handful of annoying yet interesting ones, but Graces' dungeons are binary. They're either completely linear and easy, or maze-like nightmares that require a walkthrough. Wallbridge might be the worst base game dungeons for this, and as a spectator you might not know why because the map looks like this. What isn't clear looking at this though is that the game arbitrarily blocks you from entering certain doorways until you beat the boss, so getting to your destination is unnecessarily tedious. And the devs knew this dungeon was shit because there's a hide-and-seek side quest in this place to find a bunch of kids for one of Chariot's titles. The title isn't even that good. The Lineage and Legacy post-game dungeons actually go a step further than that, and are now gigantic, sprawling teleport mazes that also have insanely beefy enemies. The final dungeon takes the cake as being several sections long, one of which is basically a teleport maze, and the second to last one having a gimmick where every floor inflicts your party with different debuffs permanently. And then the last part just has extremely long straightaways with easily avoidable enemies, because the dungeon designers hate you. I can't believe the gameplay in this game is so good, and the places where you do the gameplay are so bad, but it does have that similarity with its predecessor, Tales of Destiny Director's Cut, so maybe it's fitting, actually. I really don't like Satorl Marsh, and I'm not sure why. I mean, swamp levels in games aren't known for being good, so I guess that's already a point against it. Any area that hinders my movement speed is immediately docked 5 points minimum off of my arbitrary armchair game reviewer scale I'm using. I'm just gonna list a bunch of random stuff that irks me about this place. The music is whatever, which is only notable because the soundtrack is fantastic otherwise. Poison swamps are annoying in any game ever made. There's a lot of side quests, and side quests in this game are already a very sizable negative. The enemy selection is annoying. In the Wii version, there was this bug with the chain attack that happened more than once to me, where a party member would try running up to the enemy, but they were blocked by a bridge because they were standing in the swamp. This lasted for so long that a failsafe kicked in that ended the chain attack prematurely. This could probably happen in multiple areas, but it only ever happened to me here. I don't know, it's not one specific thing, but every time I play Xenoblade, my mood always drops thinking of having to come here or backtrack here. If I were a betting man, I'd guess most people's least favorite chapter in Paper Mario 64 is Flower Fields. It's basically the worst aspect of Thousand Year Door condensed into a single area. Just a bunch of hallways with copious backtracking, even if you do know what exact path to take to minimize it. Although for me, no, that's actually my favorite chapter, although I couldn't really tell you why. I think a big part is expectation. Flower Field has secretly been in Toad Town the entire game, being cared for by an incredibly nice gardener toad, and then you get there and everyone is miserable because the sun is depressed, and almost every major character is just such an asshole. Like, unapologetically, and I kind of appreciate that. They are willing to let their fellow flowers die due to severe narcissism. But no, my pick for the worst chapter is 100% the Yoshi's Island one. For starters, there's way too much dicking around before anything actually happens. The first section, you have to follow Colorado around, but that's whatever, because it only lasts for a minute if you beeline to where you're supposed to be going. Immediately after that, though, you're sent into the Yoshi Fetch quest. This game is made for babies, so me being more intelligent than I was when I was 8, hopefully, means I can get through this place no problem. As a stupid 8-year-old though, I had a hell of a time remembering where I was going. I could never find the last Yoshi, so I was stuck in this Yoshi hell for what felt like an eternity. A lot of the land in this section is super thin too, so avoiding encounters here is extremely difficult, and I want to not fight here if I can help it. No enemy in this game is that hard, but the guys around here can poison you, have annoying long animations, can spawn new guys, or any combination of those three. And once you finally get the Yoshi's home, you have to do block pushing puzzles that are about the caliber of the ones from the first third of Ocarina of Time, easily avoid all the no encounters in this section, walk up a big tree, yeah, thanks for the happy heart, really appreciate it. You spend so much time not being in the dungeon that when you finally get there, it only takes up what feels like a quarter of the total chapter time. Nothing really happens in here other than getting the new hammer, which you can't use on the boss. A boss which, by the way, starts decently threatening, but in the second phase becomes the easiest boss in the entire game so long as you have Sushi as your active member, or you carried around a bunch of snowman dolls, or you're using the Ice Boots badge, or why did we get the Ultra Hammer here again? And then the final fuck you straight from the Yoshis, the worst star power in the game. 3 SP to recover 20 HP. That is a lot, since your max is 50 and most healing items struggle to heal above 15, but I'm a Danger Mario player through and through, so I get literally nothing out of it. I already don't like the SNES game, man. Stop reminding me of it. I'm only here for Pikmin's video on Pikmin 2's challenge mode was the inspiration to make this video, actually. He says everything you need to know about this mode in that video, which I'll link down below, so instead I'll bend the rules and talk about purple Pikmin. I love Pikmin 2, but purples are such a sticking point because they're so absurdly, infamously overpowered. They can carry 10 Pikmin's worth of stuff, they do ×2 damage, which is even higher than the red's 1.5. They dig twice as fast because digging speed is tied to attack damage. Their slam attack does a huge chunk of damage, along with being able to stun enemies, and it has a homing effect. Their weight can pull down flying enemies immediately, and they can't be blown back by wind attacks. As shit as they were in that game, Pikmin 3 had the right idea of balancing them, making them a worse combat unit in favor of their excellent utility. And really, it was just the extremely unintuitive new slam that threw people off. Everybody who's played Pikmin 2 knows about this. And when you try that in 3, the purples just slide harmlessly off, single-handedly creating a notoriety of shittiness through unclear mechanics. With their equal to red's attack power and no longer game-breaking slam attack, purples in this game are actually a well-designed unit. It's just the Brawl Meta Knight effect that causes the infamy. This isn't a Pikmin 2 thing, but I also take issue with the phrase, well, if it's so overpowered, don't use it, because that's a complete shit non-argument for any overpowered thing in games. I shouldn't have to self-handicap to have a balanced game. Using purple Pikmin to demolish anything in Pikmin 2 is fun, but there is a universe out there where they're still fun to fight things with, and they're not game-breakingly busted. For the record, I also feel this way about Bitter Spray. It might as well be an insta-kill for 99% of enemies, but you do have to go out of your way to farm it. Oh, not really though, because being able to get it randomly from eggs, or even enemies destroyed by Bitter Spray tips it way over the edge. Plus there's the glitch where you can get 2 sprays from 1 drop. But unlike purples, it's never required for anything, so I can just easily ignore its existence. Pikmin 2's modding scene is big enough that I'm sure at least one tries to make a more balanced purple Pikmin mod. The modders always got our backs. Do I have a least favorite part of War Duns with you? Filling out the Pintrop bestiary is kind of annoying, I guess. There's a handful of bosses that are marginally more difficult versions of regular enemies and don't appear anywhere else in the game for some reason. Without save states, you'd have to do a lot of replaying the day to skip all the dialogue and forced encounters to finally fight them. This is purely for self-satisfaction because, like, do I really care about playing 1-2 again just to get a 10,000 yen pin from an enemy I'm gonna one-shot? I guess I do, because I did it. On a similar note, in my most recent playthrough I did a hard mode run as soon as I unlocked it, and Ultimate was not a huge step up in difficulty if you even remotely understand how to play the game well. I don't even mean mastering how to play Neku and his partner simultaneously. I mean outside battle stuff like getting good clothing and bravery, getting the level 2 and 3 super moves, finding the best food. You scale so harshly late game that only the super bosses or bonus dungeon could put a dent in you. I'm kind of making a stretch for this game, gotta be honest, but that's how great it is. My pick for Majora's Mask isn't Stone Tower, actually, because it and the Ocarina Water Temple are very similar in my head. They're both cool temples held back by a factor outside the dungeon itself. At least Ocarina 3D fixed that problem, but I'm not here to dump on shitty remakes. No, the Great Bay gets my pick because even to this day I have a pretty strong phobia of water areas in games. Not all of them, like I don't have a panic attack when I find Olive Ocean in Amazing Mirror, but Nintendo games were really good at scaring me with water enemies in the 64 to GameCube era. It started with Unagi and Jolly Roger Bay, it was amplified significantly with the Great Bay Eels, then continued with Mario Sunshine and Wind Waker. I remember the first time I found a big Octo, I started crying. It's kind of a wonder I beat that game. At least in Mario 64 and Wind Waker, you can play the game without needing to engage with those enemies. You have to fight these eels in Majora if you want the Zora eggs. They're huge, they quickly lunge out at you, they make horrible noises. And their face is horrifying. It's even worse at night when there's no music. For the record, if I had Outer Wilds on here, it'd be the same shit with the anglerfish world, but that game is different. Someone told me that every planet is supposed to represent different kinds of fears, and yeah, makes sense. I am fearful. I don't get the same idea from Nintendo. The way they design their ocean levels, just something about it. Okay, I don't think I'd go so far as to call Deltarune a favorite game, but the thing I don't like about it is so obvious and glaring that it really sticks out in an otherwise, so far, fantastic game. I even made a YouTube short about it. This is every map in Deltarune, and it bothers me.
And Undertale, for the record.
Almost every area is like this. Tic-tac-toe looking hallways with mostly dead ends and the odd chest with one main way forward. In Chapter 3, this felt especially ridiculous because the first 2/3 of the chapter is the Zelda 1 ripoff game, which was very unique for Deltarune so far, but then, oops, no more Zelda 1 game, time for the escape sequence with oh for fuck's sake. And even Hometown. You get out of the Dark World and it's the same shit again. I know this at least has some justification of some real-life towns have layouts similar to this, but come the fuck on, you know that's not why it's laid out this way. Chapter 4 managed to diverge a little when they introduced the climbing, but in reality it's a lateral movement because the level design is the same. It just looks and functions different. And all the forced story climbing segments suck on chapter replays. It's another Deltaruneism where it's crazy on a first playthrough because holy shit, we're climbing up a titan, that's insane. But every other go-through it's time to do this slow-ass on-rails climbing again. Aster's Lair, the fourth world of Mischief Makers, is a very noticeable drop in both level and boss quality. I won't go over every stage in detail, but just as a quick overview, there's 7 Clancer kids where you have to keep refighting the same 3 mini-bosses over and over, and I'm pretty sure this is by far the longest level in the game because of that. Aster's Trike, where you mash the shit out of your C buttons for the entire stage with janky vehicle physics. This mole that has the most annoying bonus item acquisition method because you have to stomp on his stomach every time you knock him down, and it's completely random, so there's a non-zero chance that you have to redo the stage if you don't get it. There's a couple stages where you have to play as a different character, and along with his moveset being lamer than Marina, I've always wanted to know why his HUD looks like that. Just a plain green health bar with his dialogue portrait. They gave this guy a completely unique moveset. They couldn't have given him a cool health bar? There's a ghost hunting level where you have to ride slow clouds up to the 2nd level, carry around a ghost jar, and stuff all the ghosts in it, and I always forget where the last ghost is and have to backtrack over the whole damn level for it. And then there's the area boss, Sasquatch Beta, which starts cool because you can do this. But then in the second phase, it's just this. I guess I'm glad they condensed all the shitty ideas into one big stretch, but it's such a huge drag replaying this game and getting to this point, especially since this comes right after the best boss in the game, Cerberus Alpha. My pick for Cave Story was fixed in re-releases, but I'll talk about them anyway because they left a permanent mark on my brain. When you get partway into Grasslands, the second area, you quickly find you need this item called the Jellyfish Juice to extinguish fireplaces. Ignoring that the big jellyfish that it drops from doesn't spawn until you find out you need it, Cave Story is aggressive in how much it wants you to backtrack in this one little section of the early game. You needed to progress past Chaco's house, you needed in Santa's house at the beginning of Grasslands to get the charcoal item, and you need one to make the bomb as the last objective before leaving. You need the charcoal as another bomb item, so realistically 2/3 of the ingredients are jellyfish adjacent. Optionally, there's a 4th usage, taking it back to Mimiga Village to get the Bubline weapon, which is annoying in that it adds to the list, but I don't use the Bubline, so I'm fine with skipping it. Since the current version of Cave Story Plus on Switch, and maybe other versions, lets you carry multiple juices, this isn't a problem anymore. But the backtracking being so aggressive early on was really weird, and I think is the biggest contributor to why some would incorrectly label this game as a Metroidvania. Dark Souls is another freebie. The whole second half of the game is pretty infamously bad and unfinished. The 4 areas are all bad in their own way. Skeleton World is hard to see in, and the quadrupedal skeletons feel like future Soulsborne enemies with their insane damage and infinite stamina. Lava World has a lot of bosses and none of them are fun. Bed of Chaos is infamous for a reason. Ghost World has no bonfire, meaning you always have to restart from Firelink and go down this long-ass elevator. And the ghost enemies are invincible unless you have a specific weapon that rarely drops, are using a fake curse consumable that lasts a finite amount of time, or are actually cursed. And even when you can hit them, they can still cheat and hit you through walls because they're ghosts. The 4 Kings fight also gets on my nerves because I don't think I've ever fought less than 5 kings. The library is probably my favorite because it has the most going on. It has a forced death with a unique breaking out of jail sequence, the layout is sufficiently maze-like without being too frustrating, and the visuals are far and away the best of the four. The library part is unique on its own, but transitioning to a crystal cavern straight out of Donkey Kong 64 looks great, enough that I can mostly forgive the invisible floor platforming. And for a story-related note, which I usually don't care about, the reveal that the channelers have actually been coming from this place is neat, since they're one of the few mini-boss enemies that show up in multiple areas. The worst part is the area boss, ironically, because the strategy is strafe around him and hit his butt, which is a pathetic way for an immortal dragon to die. I should probably put Final Fantasy V in here, right? My least favorite part of 5 has always been World 2 because of the awkward progression this game has sometimes. In World 1, you're constantly getting new jobs, new weapons, new spells, lots of optional areas to explore. It's a constant stream of cool new stuff. World 3 is 90% side quests, and you're back to constantly getting new stuff. The legendary weapons, the top tier spells, another new job, tons of bosses, and since you're nearing the finale, your characters probably have a lot of job levels gained, so you're more able to abuse the job system. Unfortunately, World 2 is in an awkward middle ground. There's no new jobs, most of the bosses are either pathetic, annoying, or both. The new weapons are underwhelming, the world's layout is uninteresting and there's not much to explore, and while the Aga magic and Golem are awesome, the rest of the spells you get aren't nearly as exciting and are way more spread out. Whenever I play 5, I try to speedrun World 2 because I want to get back to the fun part as fast as possible. On the plus side, we get Gilgamesh. The showdown between Galoof and Exdeath is a huge story highlight, and the Exdeath boss at the end of the world is one of the most difficult fights in the game, which World 2 is sorely lacking in. The original Crystal Chronicles is so great. As a single-player game, it's whatever, but I have so many good memories of the 4-player mode, seeing the cool magic spells, getting new weapons, trading materials to craft stuff, seeing what new crazy stages were around the corner, with the amazing soundtrack to put it all together. I'd say the path to getting the Rainbow Element Chalice is kind of annoying, but I can just Google it now, and one of my friends already knew the puzzle, so I never had to figure it out myself anyway. No, the worst part about this game is the remaster. I played the long game here and tricked all of you. This whole video is a lead up to me trashing one of the worst porting jobs in gaming history. Okay, well, that's hyperbole, but seriously, how did this go so wrong? It got delayed for forever, I think at least twice, and I remember they were saying the delays were for game polish. And I have to ask, to what end? Because the multiplayer experience is completely butchered. What was once a game of traveling through this big world with your friends together as an adventuring party has been completely removed in lieu of a completely isolated experience. But hey, it has voice acting now. That's...
Hail Moogle at your service, Capo. Capo! I have a letter today, Capo.
I'm just a Moogle that likes to get around. I learned all sorts of things in my travels before I knew it.
Great! You make multiplayer lobbies to run through one stage together, everyone gets an artifact, which was actually patched in because originally only the room creator got to make any progress, and everyone gets kicked out of the lobby after doing a single level unless you want to replay the level again for some reason. The room visitors don't even get any Moogle mail. Like, hello? What were all the delays for? It definitely wasn't for the internet connection. I remember the week it came out, my friend group met up to play the remaster, and luckily you could play multiplayer with the demo, so we tried that. On release, everyone who was connected to your game moved around so laggy and unnatural. It looked horrible, like you're trying to fight someone in TF2 whose router is currently bursting into flames on needing to render a single particle effect, and it doesn't look much better now. Even with all the patches this game got over its lifespan, you still have to do every level with every person if you want to play this how the original release did. Yeah, I'd absolutely love to do Rabena Terra 4 times in a row. How'd you know? Now that you can choose artifacts before disconnecting the party, it actually skews the difficulty in your favor by a noticeable amount. You'll have anywhere from 2 to 4 new ones when going to the next stage, giving you a really big stat boost compared to the original game, where you only got 1 per stage. How did you manage to make a multiplayer system that is orders of magnitude more irritating and incomprehensible sensible than asking a bunch of toddlers to go and buy GameCube Game Boy connector cables and hoping to God that the connector port doesn't accidentally jiggle out of place and kick us out of the Forest Lord's Adventure level back to the title screen. That stage was like 40 minutes. Why? To this day, over half a decade later, I still feel like a complete moron for buying it on release day because I just assumed the game would work like how it did originally. At least it's only 20 bucks, I guess, but also they put DLC in it. This is a goddamn GameCube game. How are you going to put actual, literal, pay-to-win DLC in a GameCube game? Look at all this shit. I don't even know what most of it means, but I can tell you it's way more expensive than the $0 that it's worth. And I think the worst part about all this is that when I was recording footage for this with Jam, even if we only did one level 2 times, I was still having fun. Despite everything, the original game underneath all this garbage is fantastic. Even a terrible port can't wash that away, but I'm always going to be melancholic about what could have been.